cryptos, how the internet and financial system is getting transformed. And here we break it in a simplified way so that you can make your way in this new wave of internet. I'm Rashi, your podcast host, back with another special guest, Beck. She's a co-founder of Clutch Wallet. Beck, please introduce yourself to the audience.
Hi, everyone. Really pleased to be here. My name's Beck Jones. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Clutch. I'm based out of LA, but originally from Australia.
We would like to know a little bit about your journey, like how you started in Web3 and how was your journey being into Web3?
Yeah, of course. So I started my journey into, I guess, like crypto is the first kind of concept I came across before Web3. In 2017, I was working in Australia's biggest business bank called NAB, and I remember my now co-founder had kind of put me aside and sat me down and spoken to me about this new technology called blockchain technology that was starting to emerge in the world, and a range of different cryptocurrencies that you could invest in. At that point, I really looked at it through like an investment lens, and I was someone that had never invested any of my savings before. So that was kind of my first experience ever investing. I purchased some Bitcoin, I purchased some Ethereum, I purchased a token called Power Ledger as well. And I think as I went through that experience for the first time, my curiosity kind of got the better of me, and I started wanting to understand more about the whole space and kind of why it was growing and why so many people were interested in it. And so, I really started through this lens of investment, but as I came to understand more about it, I saw some of the benefits, especially having worked in the finance industry for the last couple of years. And I think being someone that had moved through the 2008 global financial crisis, I saw some of the benefits of what this technology could bring. And so then I was excited to possibly work in the space. And in 2019, I left my corporate banking job and I moved over to the States, and I started working for a cryptocurrency startup at that point. So that was, I guess, the journey into at least leaving the bank and starting to work in the crypto space. And then I think like 2020 was when people started mentioning, Web3 as more of like a larger concept. And so, yeah.
So how was the shift, as you mentioned, previously before Web3 and cryptos, you were into banking. So how was the shift from banking to the non-banking world, and what excited you to get in this decentralized world from a well-paying banking job, and how was this journey after entering into cryptos?
Yeah, it was a big jump, and there was so much that changed. I think I felt at the time that staying in Australia, whilst there was some kind of blockchain groups and there was definitely some momentum in Australia, it did feel a little bit more slower in pace, and there wasn't as much innovation happening from there as a country. So I think just like the move, location-wise, was one big change. And then going from working in like a corporate banking company where there's a lot of stability, there's a lot of trajectory around, where you can go within the bank, and there's a lot of perks, whether it's health insurance or maternity leave, to throw yourself into, an emerging industry where you don't have any of those benefits, where there are massive market swings that impact your ability to be paid, and maybe the longevity of the business you're working in. So I feel like I went from like risk off to risk on pretty quickly. And then a changing market, I went from working 9 to 5, 5 days a week and enjoying my weekends, to working in a 24/7 market. And so that was a shift as well as working for like a startup business, which is a completely different stage to where I came from. So I felt like everything got flipped upside down. But I loved that aspect of, I guess, just like something that was new. I learned so much in the process of leaving, my corporate job and building new skill sets and building a tougher skin around how to kind of survive and position myself in front of opportunities. And then I think from the lens of like decentralization, I feel like the empowerment aspect that comes with people building this space and building technology and products that enable users and, the world to have more ownership over their experience, over their value, over their currencies, whatever aspect it is that that kind of blockchain technology is bringing to the value it's bringing to their lives. That felt very aligned to me as a person. And so I think, working in the decentralized space and in a space where I felt like I was giving back in a way that was more aligned to my values was something that that felt really good.
So yeah, it's been a quite long journey, and I'm sure you have been enjoying this entrepreneurship journey in Web3 and being a founder of the Pledge Wallet. So are you enjoying this ride of Web3, being a founder here?
That's a new side of it as well for me. I've come from working in more marketing-based roles prior to now, and when I was in the bank, I was more like banking associate. So I'm definitely not one of those founders that if you asked me, do you think that, did you think you would be running a company when you were a young girl? I don't think that would have been my answer, but I'm loving the challenge of building new skill sets. I have two wonderful co-founders that work alongside of me. And so you kind of figure out your niche in terms of the value that you're going to bring to the company and, what you do really well. And then you figure out what gaps need to be filled around you so you can make it work. So I think, the founding side and building side of working in this industry is something that's really exciting. And, I think there's an attachment to being able to create something for other people that maybe I didn't feel as strongly, working at other companies as much before. So I've loved the founding side of working in Web3.
Great. So as you mentioned, you started in 2017, after dropping out of your banking job. So at that time, even Web3 world even didn't exist, and it started in 2020. So how did the crypto industry evolve from 2017 to till now in the span of 6 to 7 years? And what could be the potential you see, or does it hold 5 years down the line?
Sure. Great questions. I think there's been a lot of change that I've noticed over the last kind of 6 to 7 years. I think starting off, at least the general public perception was that crypto was this lucrative investment opportunity. And then I think it started to develop a lot more credibility and people started to take a lot more understanding. People started to understand it a lot more, and, bigger tech companies, more intelligent people started to give it some time and make the move into working for, in the industry as well. And I think the shift of some of that attention and talent and capital has meant that we've had innovations around, decentralized finance, which came, soon after the ICO era of 2017 and those initial kind of coins and tokens that we saw. We saw the introduction of NFTs, which brought this kind of cultural element, it seemed like, where there are a lot more brands starting to participate in the space. There are a lot more communities being built around, different NFT assets. We saw, the beginnings of the metaverse as well and how Web3 would contribute to experiences there. I think there's been some really interesting discussions over the last year around identity and the way that different tokens and blockchain technology can establish our online identities. The gaming experiences and people's ability to play and earn is another space that's expanded over the last kind of 6 to 7 years. I think something that I'm interested in now, and having come from a marketing and social background, is the way in which social experiences will be built in this space where users are empowered to maybe own parts of their data or, the content they create. There's a lot of broken issues that I see with, the social media space that we exist in today. And I can see a lot of different people starting to work on social and Web3. So I think that's something that I would foresee over the next kind of 5 or so years. But personally, I think there's been a lot of innovation in terms of the tech. What is a challenge is the user experience and adoption, which we really haven't seen yet. So I think, over the next 5 years, it would be great to see user experiences improve, people's understanding of what they're using and why this is important to improve. And maybe for there to be a stronger relationship with governments and regulators. So there's not like such a friction as well. I think that there's levels of regulation for sure that's needed that protects consumers, but not in a way that completely removes our ability to make use of this technology.
So as you started it's just not a lucrative investment, and people have started a bit understanding like how this industry is going to shape up the world and this new wave of decentralized internet. And for sure, there's a huge gap between the user interface and the adoption. So just from the point of view of just investments, people have started understanding the potential it holds. So that is the great thing. So people are comparing this 2022 crash of FTX breakdown to the 2008 crash, and a lot had happened in 2022 as we have seen. It was a completely rough year for us, from Luna breakdown, FTX bankruptcy. So we all know how important it is to store our assets in our own custody. After the FTX scenario, it was a centralized exchange. So how important is the role of wallet when it comes to storing our assets in our own custody?
Yeah, I mean, I think the wallet is a really beautiful product that enables that self-custody and ownership experience. It's clunky right now, though. There's a lot of wallets where you have key generation that is associated with a seed phrase that you need to write down on a piece of paper and store somewhere safe. It's just not a realistic user experience in today's world where you pull out your phone and you tap it onto something and you make a payment. Like that ease in which we interact with technology hasn't really been there for the wallet space. I think something that I'm very excited about that we've seen in terms of innovation over the last 12 to 18 months is around smart wallets and technology that's called account abstraction, which allows for wallets to be personalized, to have layers of security that is dependent on how the user wants to set up their security around their wallet, and the removal of the need for seed phrases. So signing in with like more of a social way or an email or something to that effect, which makes the user experience something that is known, that we're used to, and also something that's not scary that you can lose and then you lose access to your your value in your accounts. There's a layer of security issues and concerns that come with all of this, and so part of this is prompting education and user experiences that support users in understanding how they can really protect their assets and add layers of security over the top, whether that's adding limits to their wallet, having secondary signatures, adding a whitelist of addresses that they only transact with. These are just some of the kind of innovations around the wallet space that we've started to see over the last 12 to 18 months. And so I think the wallet is a very important product because it enables users, at least non-custodial wallets, enable users to have complete ownership over their assets. I mean, the world has just watched as Silicon Valley Bank has nearly closed. I mean, they've closed their doors down, but nearly stopped their customers from accessing their deposits in millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars. And there is a lot of curiosity that's sparked from that, where people have started to ask questions around, well, hang on a second, if I've deposited my money with the bank, then doesn't that mean that, it's sitting there? And unfortunately, no. There's a big gap in education around the banking infrastructure and the way that fractional reserve banking works, which is there's only on average 5 to 10% that's held in deposits. And so if people are all pulling their funds out, you're not going to access your assets and your value. So I don't think I'm not an advocate for totally non-custodial, like with all of your assets in that space, because I think that is a risk in itself, but there's an opportunity for people to mitigate their risk by leveraging wallets and non-custodial wallets where you can store your cryptocurrencies, your tokens, and you are the full asset owner of those, and no one can basically take that away from you.
We should diversify our holdings or the assets in any of the cases, be it like holding in custodial or non-custodial or on exchanges. So before coming to the SBB Bank Run, so as you mentioned, the user experience is the point that where we are lacking for the Web3 adoption. So being the founder of Clutch Wallet, how are you ensuring the smooth onboarding when it comes to securing your assets in your own custody?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, look, sometimes I look at the market timing of us entering into this space and it feels quite saturated, at least with regards to the people that have adopted it. You know, we only have 3% of the population that actually have wallet addresses, so there's a big opportunity there. But in terms of the people that are there, you know, they've got their own wallets, and moving wallets, kind of similar to moving banks, it's a bit of a headache. It's not the easiest thing to do. The benefit that we have had, though, from being a later mover is that we've been able to build with innovations around technology. And so for us, building a wallet where you don't have a seed phrase that you have to write down creates a very seamless experience. Building a wallet where we can leverage account abstraction and have users set the type of experience and security layers over their assets that makes them comfortable creates a very unique experience. And so I think those are two components around the technology innovation that we're benefiting from in being maybe a later stage mover. In terms of how we're designing the product, we're very thoughtful around that. You know, we've looked at products to date and they've felt like they've been built by developers, male developers for male developers. And that makes sense. You know, that was the initial adopters of this space. But as we start to think about, you know, the 97% of the population that hasn't come in yet, there's a big opportunity to soften some of those designs and user experiences and start thinking about audiences that, you know, may not have participated before. And so for us, we've been very, very intentional in thinking about women and thinking about the kind of color palette and the softness in design that might appeal to them so that they feel as if products have been built for them in this space. You know, the naming of our brand, Clutch, was very intentional with that regard as well. The other aspect I think that we've built into the user experience is around educational content and pop-ups and the ability to support users as they're going through, you know, different actions and flows. And so there's some of the ways that I think we've really tried to double down on thinking about the user experience and improving upon what's there.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, content and color palette, that is the most fascinating I also personally feel to use. So I'm sure Clutch Wallet is going to onboard next billion users for sure.
Thank you.
So yeah, now coming on to the SBB Bank Run. So what do you think, what role did cryptocurrencies play in this aftermath of the SBB meltdown, and how does this whole bank run ecosystem highlighted the need for greater transparency and accountability that we aim to achieve with cryptocurrencies? And Bitcoin started itself with the previous bank run that was in 2008, Lehman Brothers. So how this will be a turning point for crypto investors?
Yeah, look, I think I'm just pulling up my phone as I'm talking to you to see what the current stats are. But I think if you look across the board, crypto's up significantly in the last 24 hours. I think Bitcoin's up 8%, ETH's up 4%. And, you know, that is because people are questioning right now the experience that's just happened over the weekend. And cryptocurrencies and tokens are, you know, sometimes certain ones are like a vehicle where people can store value and they have a level of security in knowing that they can access it and there's stability there. So I think there's that aspect, which is, you know, it's currencies that are relying on technology, not governments. It's currencies that are stored in a way that you are the custodian owner, that gives a level of security and peace of mind to people that they might want to diversify, you know, where they store some of the value that they've created in their life.
So yeah, this was a huge turning point, I believe, for the investors and who are keeping their funds all the way across the world. So, do you think like diversification is the key, be it any like cryptos or the fiats, or like, do you think like diversification plays a major role?
Yeah, I think it was so interesting because as the news started to roll out on Friday, I actually had one of the girls I live with who was running her own company. She had money in the Silicon Valley Bank, so I was watching as she was processing the news that maybe she wasn't going to have access to the capital that she'd raised for her business. And all of a sudden, that kind of got me and my co-founders into thinking, like, all right, well, where is our capital? We have a mixture of capital. We have capital sitting in, US dollars in a bank, and we have cryptocurrencies that are sitting with Gnosis Safe. And we started thinking about what tokens we held, and one of those tokens was USDC. And USDC, the stable token coin, was, a portion of that, I think it was 3.4 billion, was held with Silicon Valley Bank. And they put out a statement late on Friday, I think it was like 8 p.m, because I was making content on TikTok at the time. And all of a sudden, my co-founders and I are like, oh, like this could be a really big problem. And, we're still an early stage startup. So every penny counts at this point in building our business. And, we had a fair bit of USDC. And so then, we're strategizing, okay, well, what should we put it into? Like, what is a stable store of value right now where it's not going to change too much, and it's not going to be impacted by what's going on externally? And that was a challenging decision because DAI, DAI is a decentralized stablecoin that is also backed partially by USDC. So that probably wasn't the best option. It was at least a de-risked option, but it wasn't the best. Ethereum, is a strong network, but it has a bit of movement in terms of its price, the same as Bitcoin. And then USDT, the other stable coin, there are some concerns around its backing. And so, all of a sudden, as like a founding team, we're discussing, where should we be putting our value? And so to answer your question, I guess the diversification aspect to it is what we went with. A little bit here, a little bit there. At least then we're covering our bases. But I think what this event also triggered for a lot of people was, first of all, diversification, but then secondly, you could diversify across a couple of different banks, but if all three of them close, then you still don't have access to those funds. So then the next prompt, or I guess insight, is around self-custody. And that's, a function that cryptocurrency wallets provide. So I think they're two kind of interesting learnings that I think the world is kind of going through right now.
For taking the time and sharing your journey and experience with us. And I'm really inspired by your journey from like banking to this decentralized world. And I really appreciate your joining and speaking here today. And I'm very much excited for Clutch Wallet, what it does and where it goes 5 years down the line. So if anyone wants to connect with Bec, I'll leave her socials in the description, and feel free to talk to her. And thank you, Bec. It was glad talking to you.
Thank you so much for having me on. Appreciate it.